Hi folks, I am going to share my video on the YouTube as I do this live stream for the One Great Work Network. I apologize for my appearance today, if that matters to anybody. I have not been feeling very good this week, and I think it's more of a mental issue. And maybe, getting on the YouTube and live streaming on the One Great Work Network, perhaps that will allow me to kind of connect with a few people.
I have not been feeling very good this week.
Let me mute that. Connect with some people, and then I can just see how everyone else is doing out there, right? All right. So, again, my name is Patty, and I have a website called Natural Law Health, which, if you're not aware, on my website I offer health consultations, mostly through, I don't even know if I'm on. Oh, I am. But yeah, I offer health consultations, and I'm also offering natural, kind of more focused on the real science as opposed to science with an agenda, those types of science courses. I've recently finished up cell biology and electrical chemistry, and I'm about to offer anatomy and physiology, a kind of multi-part course, and it will begin next Sunday, a week from Sunday. And I've just been so bogged down with life. And I don't know if anyone else out there is feeling this. I know the people that watch the Mark Passio's work and other people on the One Great Work Network. I know those folks are very much hip to the scam, right? We kind of know what's going on, but I feel so outnumbered. I mean, I don't know. The only people I connect with that I resonate with are not in my vicinity. And I don't even talk to anybody. I mean, when I was teaching my classes with Dr. Robert Morris, Sunday nights, I looked forward to that so much because I connected with all of those students, and they were there to learn, with the help of Dr. Morris's wisdom, and he's a healer of 50 years, and he's been using nature to help people reverse illness. And when I'm in that group of just connected and common and resonating thoughts, I guess, I don't know how to put it, but I feel relaxed, and I feel like, okay, I'm part of a family. But that's like 2 hours out of a whole week. And for the past couple of weeks, I haven't been teaching that class. I needed to take a break to develop my new course, and and I wanted to have Sunday off for Father's Day. I mean, my dad has done a shit ton for me in my life, and I really love him. But I've been really feeling it. I mean, I've been really feeling the pressure, and it's really getting to me. And it's kind of hard to keep my head above water at times, because I feel very much, I don't know, maybe this is part of the powers that should not be. Maybe this is kind of how they really start to whittle away at our soul. And I'm staying strong. I'm not backing down, but let me turn off this stupid ass phone. I don't think I turned it off. I don't think I hit the sound button. Okay, sound is off. But it's really getting to me, and I live with 3 dogs and a cat, and maybe I'm at that age where what do they say, like, if you're single and over the age of 40, you're probably going to be like that way for the rest of your life. And then there's like a little meme of like a woman that turns 40, and then she opens up her door and she's single And there's like, maybe if, when I do the editing for this video, I'll put that little meme if I can find it on the edited version of this. But yeah, she turns 40 and she opens up her front door as a single 40-year-old woman, and there's like 500 cats at her front door. They said, "We heard you turned 40 today." So anyway, I mean, I think I used to be more so that way than I am today. I mean, I guess maybe 15 years ago or so, I was really into animal rescue, and my oldest dog, who is 15 and a half, is he down here with me? No, my dog Loretta is down here with me. He stays upstairs unless, he wants to take a risk on the steps. He's doing pretty good for 15 and a half, though. He walks well, and he's a good dog, but he was a foster fail, so I was fostering him and fell in love with him, and that was 15 and a half years ago. His name is Mr. Willard James McGee. And, and I think I've mentioned this story in the past. It was through my love of just dogs and, knowing how connected I felt with them and safe I felt with them. And then I saw how government was just, as government does, totally irrational when it came to dogs. The first atrocity I came across was shortly after I joined Facebook. And I was a late adopter to Facebook. I think I joined in 2010. Because I was just like, what is this bullshit? I don't get this Facebook nonsense. And I wish I never joined, really. But, I guess I connected with people I would have never met. So it's not all bad. It's like anything, it's a tool. But I think I came across this group in Facebook, and it was about, through the different groups I was liking about animal rights and animal rescue. These asshole government people up in Quebec, they were taking dogs away from families just based on their breed. And, it's kind of like judge the action, don't judge the breed, right? And our society is, so messed up. I think we all that are here know this. We are so messed up as a society, and I don't want to say we, because I don't put myself in that category, but it's like, why in the hell is there so much attention on certain types of thought patterns? Doesn't make sense to me. And I guess the thing that really got to me, that really kind of started to catapult my current, I don't want to call it a mental illness, but I really feel mentally drained and mentally exhausted. And I know I need to get out of my mind. I know, the world is mental, and I know our minds are powerful, so that's why I know I need to get out of this kind of thought pattern. I really, I need a break. I need a change or something, but I feel so kind of tied down. And so in the fall at my current job, job, just over broke, which looking for other jobs right now, as I'm looking for online teaching positions, because I'm really concerned that my current employer is going to really enforce this whole jab and wearing of the mask if I don't get the jab onto me. And so I thought, well, I better look for some backups, right? Because I have 3 dogs and a kitty cat to feed. And I do feed them. I probably spend more money. I'm not going to say probably. I do spend more money on their food than I do my own. And not just, 1 for 1. It's like 4 to 1. So I spend 4 times or more on their food. And I spend more time on their food preparing it than I do on my own food. Which I don't mind. I'm their parent. Although my dog Loretta thinks we're sisters, so I have to go with that. But, I don't mind feeding them a species-appropriate diet and giving them the best nutrients. But, I'm going to have to make some changes if I'm going to have to cut corners to purchase what I'm used to purchasing for them. But anyway, last weekend, I guess I was with all of you last Friday. And Saturday, I went to this new chiropractor because I have, I think I've mentioned it before, some neck injuries. One major neck injury, which was caused by a chiropractor. And this chiropractor was recommended to me by my homeopathic primary care physician. And he doesn't really do the harsh manipulations, and he's very gentle. And when I went to him last week, he seemed cool. He's down with nature, which I'm obviously, Natural Law Health is my website, so that was good. I didn't see, though, his reminder text message to me. I didn't see it. All I saw was the confirmation, just confirming your appointment for tomorrow, for Saturday. And I was grateful that he saw patients on Saturdays because, I'm teaching during the week. And where his office is not really close to where I live. I kind of live out in the county, and he's down in the hip, closer to the city of where I live. And anyway, you got to be careful with people that live closer to the city because there is something about city life and kind of that urban environment. I think it does. People that are down there, because I live in, like I said, the county. And I live on, in the state I live in. I live on the other side of the river. Where I know, because I left the state I live in, I don't want to put out where I live on, because I'm going to be uploading this onto YouTube. So I don't want people to know even where the state I live in. But I live on the other side of the river, and when I was a kid, people that lived on the other side of the river, because I used to live closer to the city as a child, they were kind of like, shooting off fireworks probably 200 days a week out of the year, and, they had, their country life, and, I don't know, I think when I was younger, before I left the state I live in, I dated a guy that lived on this side of the river, and he, his family brewed their own beer and did all that kind of stuff, right? And I didn't really judge people like that. I just, there was just a common understanding of people like that. They have a certain lifestyle, and I was part of the other group that lived closer to the city, a little bit more exposed to the culture, which now it's kind of, I've done a complete 180. Anyway, I'm digressing. The chiropractor is in the city, and so he's very much influenced by the people in that area, which they're very much about, like the Black Lives Matter, the virtue signaling, like I got the jab. And, he's a little bit more hip. I mean, anyway, his text to me, I didn't read the whole thing, but it was just confirming my appointment with him last week. And then I actually scheduled another appointment with him. And I got another confirmation email from him, or text from him. And when I was going back to read that text, I saw the previous text, and at the bottom of that confirmation was, no mask required if you've been vaccinated. I didn't see that last week. I did not see that. And so I just walked into his office, no mask, nothing. And it was like halfway through the appointment, he said, oh, have you been vaccinated? I'm like, no. And so he put a mask on, and I was just a little taken aback. I was like, wow, okay. And then he shared with me that, he had not been vaccinated for 50 years, because, he's a natural health professional. And even as a chiropractor, I know some chiropractors can be very, allopathic in their mindset, but he was very much not in that mindset, I guess, for 50 years. He stayed away from vaccines. But yet, he said he felt the pressure, and he just decided to go ahead and get the vaccine. And that was like, my heart sank a little bit, because, for the first half of the appointment, I was like really feeling like, okay, this guy's cool, and not everybody is, believing the story and going along with this agenda. I'm really like flabbergasted that there's not a bigger pushback. But but when he said that to me, I was just like, damn, why? Why do people feel the pressure? And, albeit I do not watch the news. I don't watch anything on mainstream. Every now and then, and I kind of watch this as a study of where people's minds are, but also, like, if I see it, I'll just watch it. Because I have this, well, I don't even know if I want to share with what I watch sometimes, but just every now and then I'll watch maybe on my computer, like a syndicated program. And after like 15 minutes, I just want to puke, because it's like I can see in the acting and in the, the writers and what they're having the actors say, they're putting forth an agenda. They're putting forth like how to think. And humans really are, as Mark Passio states, programmable species. And we're being programmed by these televisions. So I don't have a television, but like I said, every now and then I'll just, to get a feel for where pop culture is and where they're trying to guide humanity, I'll just watch one. And like today, I had this headache just all day, and I think there was a couple of reasons why I had the headache, and I think it has a lot more to do with frustration than me being ill. I mean, like, I'm really kind of sick of this, what's going on, and it's kind of becoming more of a, like, shit hitting the fan type of reality in my life, and, me having to make some major changes because of everything that's going on. And so I kind of I didn't want to deal with anything, so I just turned on a program, and they were doing like how it was hip because this one young girl kissed another girl, and she didn't want to identify herself as a lesbian or bisexual, and they were like trying to put out these like pronoun things, and it's like, don't we have bigger fucking problems to be dealing with right now, especially? I mean, what is going on? I mean, I don't have a problem with anybody that is of age and can think for themselves. I mean, I think all human beings are sovereign and they can make their own decision. Be with whoever you want to be. Dress however you want to be. If you want to actually... I mean, I don't judge that. I in fact, as an anarchist, I accept everyone as they are. And that's what freedom is. But, I don't know. I mean, maybe they're just trying to make things more common, but I just wonder, because, like, these things come in waves. These agendas come in waves, and is it because they're putting more artificial hormones into the diet and into other products that humans use, that people, as they assimilate these hormones and other things and the plastics and whatnot, that they're becoming more confused biologically? I mean, maybe they're trying to do something like that. I have no freaking idea. I mean, I feel like I live in Waterworld. I don't even know if that's a good analogy. I just feel like, I don't know. But I've just been feeling really crappy all week, and it's getting to me, and I don't have anybody to talk to. I mean, I've got like my YouTube channel people that I watch, but they're not people I can have conversations with, right? Let me check out the YouTube and see if anybody's joining me, because I really, again, didn't advertise this on the YouTube at all. Nobody's here. I got a like, though. I did get a like. That's awesome. Oh, man. But yeah, I normally, like, try to make myself look a little bit more presentable before these things, but I was just not feeling it today. I was barely able to put clothes on. And, oops. I don't know if that's just my Zoom that's doing that weird stuff. Not quite sure. Not sure at all. But, yeah, so I'm really kind of disheartened by the world. And it's so crazy. Like, I have woken up to the work of many people that are even part of this, the content creators of the One Great Work Network. You know, Mark Passio and, gosh, there's so many people on that channel. James Corbett, so many people. I can't even list everybody because I don't want to miss anybody, because all of the content creators, they get it. But they're all spread out, and everybody's all like far away from me, and it's very much, I don't know, lonely. Anyway, I got some emails. I guess I'll read those. That might be fun. Let me read the emails that came in. Oops, that's the wrong email. Let me pull this one in front of me. Now my face is very bright. No more of the black screen. Now this first question was actually from one of the students that took my online science courses. And I don't know if this was like a question meant for this live stream, but I thought I'd address it here because a lot of times the questions that come in, you know, I want this to be a learning live stream event just as much as it is anything else. And so this is probably the best place for me to make time to answer questions. But this person wrote, and I'm not going to say their name because I don't know if they wanted me to share this on my live stream, but they are interested in naturopathy, and they've watched many of Dr. Morris's videos, and their question is about the acid-base balance and the electrolyte chemistry. Dr. Morris often talks about the calcium from the walls of our blood vessels being used to neutralize acid. You mentioned it in one of your lectures as well. If acids are substances that give off hydrogen ions, why would another cation, calcium with a 2+ charge, neutralize them? Well, you have to remember what calcium is not going to be existing by itself. Okay, so a lot of times when calcium ions are released from a cell, it's balanced with an anion. So you know what I'll do is I'll just share my whiteboard and explain this using kind of a chemical substance that most of us are familiar with. So let me pull up my whiteboard. And this was something I was going over with my anatomy and physiology students at my regular JOB yesterday, so let me erase that. And I'm going to just do some basic acid-base neutralization types of reactions. So acids, you are correct. So in her email, she did correctly write down that acids are basically defined as substances that give off hydrogen ions. And when you have an acid, the reason why it's going to be neutralized by a cation is because it's what is associated with the cation. Okay, so like think of Tums, you know, an antacid, which I don't recommend anybody take. You want to get to the heart of the problem of why you're feeling acid indigestion. Usually it's because you're not producing enough acid from your stomach as opposed to producing too much. And when you don't produce enough acid in your stomach, the food is not digested appropriately. It sits in the stomach and it putrefies, and or if it's like my putrefying, and during those kind of weird reactions, why can I not think? Putrefaction and fermentation, those types of reactions, they produce a lot of noxious gases that cause you to bloat and have indigestion. That's really what's causing most cases of acid indigestion. And so people They might take Tums, which is sodium bicarbonate. Okay, so, and they think that that's helping them out, right? So, sodium bicarbonate has this formula. You've got the positive sodium ion, and bicarbonate is a negative polyatomic ion. And then the story goes that theoretically you're producing too much hydrochloric acid, right? So you've got hydrogen ion. And what happens is that the two cations, the two positive ions, switch partners, right? So N, what happens? We form sodium chloride when sodium and hydrogen mix. And we form then, so sodium goes with the chloride, and then hydrogen will go with the, hydrogen will go with the bicarbonate to form this kind of weaker acid. So at least it's displacing the stronger acid, and that's kind of neutralizing the whole, the excess amount of this, which theoretically you think you're producing because you're burping and your stomach hurts. It's probably because you're producing too little. But we can do the same thing with calcium, right? So let's do this from another perspective. Let's pretend that in your blood you have too many acids. And so those acids give off, hydrogen ions, protons essentially. And you're going to have the H+, and this is a true acid emergency because a lot of times when we're lymphatically congested, these acids and whatever they might be coupled with are going to not be able to be eliminated effectively. And they start to build up, irritate, inflame, and then when you have chronic inflammation, that leads to tissue induration. And then, that leads to tissue change, and then you start seeing ulceration and even things like, neoplasms or cancers. So let's say hydrogen ion, who knows what it might be coupled with, right? But it's coupled with some sort of negative anion, typically. And what we would do is we would leach out calcium from the walls of our blood vessels. Our blood vessel walls have 3 layers, most of them, except for the smallest blood vessels, which are the capillaries. They only have 1 layer. But most blood vessels have a tunica intima, which is just a single layer of flat cells, a middle layer called the tunica media, which is made up of smooth muscle, and then an outer layer, which is just some connective tissue. Well, smooth muscle, like all muscle tissue, requires calcium for contraction. And so there's going to be some calcium in that smooth muscle tissue. And if we have too much acid that is building up lymphatically around those tissues where the blood vessels are passing through, that calcium, and calcium, by the way, could be coupled with a variety of things as well. So it's going to be coupled with, again, some sort of anion. And the two will kind of, you can think of neutralize each other by switching places, but really this is just going to help to, I guess diminish a little bit of the strong acid, making it a little bit weak. So that's the whole how neutralization reactions work and why the calcium, just like the sodium bicarbonate that people would take for like Tums and whatnot, it's just to neutralize the acids, to create a weaker version of something that is a strong acid and burning us internally. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I don't know if this did make sense or not, but that's a good question. It is good to ask these things. So yeah, the calcium, it's really more so whatever it's coupled with will then combine with the hydrogen ion. So let's say it's a hydroxide or a phosphate. If hydroxide, OH, with a -1 charge couples with hydrogen, you just form water, right? So that's pretty innocuous. Anyway, that is neutralization reactions. And it's kind of a type of exchange reaction. So there you go. That was a great question by a student that has taken my natural health courses. And yeah, you learn about neutralization reactions in chemistry courses. We talk a little bit about exchange reactions, where the positive ions exchange places with their negative counterparts. And when we're forming a substance that's less acidic, that's to the benefit of the organism or the cell where this chemical reaction is occurring. So there you go. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. All right. And let's see, I think I had one other question. Before I get to this other question, I think I'm going to take a little pause because I do need to use the restroom. I should have done this before I started. So I'm going to turn off my document camera that I use for teaching. And I'm going to address another emailed question that came in. Let me pull that up. This is from, I don't know if they want me to share their name, but this was a question specifically addressed for my live stream. So I'll just go ahead and read it. I've got time to do so. Here's a question / thought I have been having for some time now. This pertains to the research and study of occulted / esoteric knowledge or information. From what I have observed, there does not seem to be a questioning of whether or not the information researched and or gained has actual validity, as in being the truth, and is instead accepted as being true simply by virtue of it being deemed occult or esoteric. Okay. I know this may seem as a shock, especially to those who are engaged in said fields of research and having adopted occult esoteric beliefs. But let's remember, secret societies, which have been historically the guardians of occult or esoteric material, were not immune to dogma and or belief systems run by priestarchies. The same could be said of independent authors or researchers who then went on to add their own personal touch into the information they put out there, which would not necessarily be the truth, but more of a version of the truth. Sure, it can be said that the truth is self-evident and to the wise will be recognized as such. But from my own continued research, I can say with 100% assurance that I did find dogmatic beliefs in certain occult esoteric societies who did provide some eternal truths, but were still contaminated by religious thought, which ended up clouding their vision to what actually is reality. Best example I can give here is Blavatsky and Crowley's work. Too much to go into, so I'll just leave those two as examples. And I'm glad you brought up Blavatsky. I think I mentioned her last week, Madame Blavatsky. Because I was listening to some guy, I think I told you last week, his name's David Vose, and he was liking Blavatsky, but then he started questioning Steiner as, perverting her wisdom, as if, whatever she said was the truth. And, anyway, I don't want to, I'll hold off on my commentary for now, but, I did mention Blavatsky last week, and I think she has a lot of great things to say. I'm not as familiar with her as I am with Rudolf Steiner, but I know Mark Passio considers him a theosophist, and she is kind of I believe to be, she is the founder of theosophy. So is Crowley. Anyway, my continued research makes me review past knowledge gained, and more often than not, I have to update my views because of new information that comes in contradicting the previous belief I have come to have. Because on the knowledge I had researched. Based on the knowledge I had researched. In this sense, it is a non-ending journey of deconstructing and peeling away what is false to arrive at what is true. This dynamic has been very much true in the esoteric occult information I have studied because of the fact that so much of said knowledge is clouded by dogma. One would think this would not be the case, but as I continue my search, I see it present even in this field of research. I'm writing this email so that you may share my thoughts on your platform because I have not seen this particular question being asked by many people engaged in this community. An open question I would leave for all to ponder is, if new information was provided that severely contradicted your established knowing, quote unquote, would the people in this community be willing to totally reconsider what they have come to accept as true? I do think that the dangers and traps of collective thinking are always present, especially any time a community is formed. And in parentheses, he writes, or she writes, the psychology of it all, Gustav Le Bon's The Crowd, end quote. And because of that, one of the things that suffer in the end is one's honesty in the search for truth. Hence my question and thought on this whole subject. I thank you for your time and attention to this question, hoping everything is going well on your end, and wishing you a pleasant day. Cheers. Well, thank you. Today's been kind of a shitty day, but, I'm doing the best I can. It's been kind of like a crazy, shitty year. All right, so I don't know if I would consider myself a person that could best address your thoughts here, but, you have to, I don't know, one thing that I have found to be true and I've only been kind of considered an anarchist, or I've considered myself to be an anarchist researching, esoteric and occulted information. But I often find there's always a little bit of truth, or at least what it seems to be truth, and I can resonate with it, mixed in with a little bit of something that is meant to dissuade, or something that is meant to control or manipulate. And I don't know if that's true for all esoteric findings, but it seems to be very true with everything that's current today. So, like allopathic medicine, which, that's probably the field that I research the most, not because I like it, but because I was involved in it, I was part of it, and escaped. But, allopathic medicine is really good in emergencies. So there's a plus, there's a benefit. But pretty shitty across the board everywhere else. Using chemicals to suppress symptoms or cutting out organs instead of, trying to detoxify and cleanse and strengthen the organ. They just cut it out. Case in point, Dr. Morris, if you've been following him at all, he's working with a client who is a diabetic, and this client's foot, his big toe, became incredibly necrotic, and obviously the allopaths told him to cut it off. He didn't want to cut off his big toe. He goes to Dr. Morris. Dr. Morris has been helping him. He's on diabetic type 1 on a 100% fruit diet, which, most people would say, oh, you can't have fruit if you're a type 1 diabetic. Well, that's what Dr. Morris is using with him. 100% fruit. And this guy's toe is healing. I mean, he shows pictures on his YouTube channel, of this toe. And maybe, I don't know if I can pull up, if I'm live streaming, another YouTube channel. I probably can pull it up on another not under my own account, but I should share this toe with everybody because it's quite remarkable. Maybe I will do that. And I think everybody should anyway. Everybody should follow Dr. Morse and his work. He is remarkable. So let's see if I can pull up the YouTube on a different browser that's not going to interfere with my live streaming because I don't understand technology. But yeah, this goes into the face of allopathy. So there, you have allopathic medicine, which everybody is just enamored by. And they just think is so amazing. Like even some guy on my Facebook channel, I posted something about, what was it, like, DDT. Everybody thought DDT was great to spray to get rid of mosquitoes until somebody actually questioned the science. And somebody posted under my picture showing this little kid getting sprayed with DDT back in, who knows what year it was, but it was a black and white photo. But he wrote that, we shouldn't discredit all of science, because, antibiotics have just been such a savior. Antibiotics have caused more shit in our world than have helped, trust me. And because I don't align with the germ theory of disease, I don't think getting rid of the little life forms that show up to clean up necrotic or dead or dying tissue, I don't think those are the issue. It's the biological terrain. Why is the tissue in such a state that it's attracting microbes to come and break it down so that a new tissue can grow? And that's what Dr. Morse is simply following. And I apologize, person that wrote this to me, and I know I'm getting off on a tangent, but I will come back to you. But you kind of have to look at things like that. Because, you might be studying some esoteric knowledge and you find something about the group that you're studying that maybe you think everything that they said is just like golden, but there could be something off with it. Is it off because there was an agenda behind it? Or is it off because they simply did not know everything? Or is it off for some other reason? Maybe because we've switched to a new dimension. I don't know. So let me, I'm getting very distracted by YouTube here. Hold on. I think his YouTube channel is Robert Morse ND. Robert Morse, Morse ND. And yeah. So I think this was his latest video.
Paradise!
This was his latest video. And I'm going to fast forward to where he shows the pictures of this toe. It's quite remarkable, right? This is a person with type 1 diabetes. And I only share this because, first and foremost, Dr. Morse is an amazing healer. And he uses truth. He uses natural law. And he's been doing this for 50 years. And he has stayed to this foundational principle that fruit is the most ideal food for man, and a fruit-based diet with water-rich, electrolyte-rich, phytonutrient-rich, all of this, and energetically. It's more about energy than it is anything physical or materialistic, but he has been aligned with this idea, this truth, if you will, that this is what heals people. And he's been putting people on, 30 days, 60 days of grapes, on these cleanses where we're using he's using high astringent fruits to help people cleanse and to pull the interstitial congestion out of the spaces between their cells, to free that space up so that there can be movement, there can be energy flowing to and from the cells. And when the cells get the appropriate energy, they do detoxify very effectively, and then they regenerate. And this is what's happening with this toe. So I'm going to share this with you because it's very important. He's been sharing this, for a couple of weeks now, but I think this is, it's a remarkable case. And I'm very amazed, because he, in his aligning with truth again, is showing real results. And they're not going to share this with anybody in the allopathic field or anybody in allopathy. I mean, some people, if they're, ready to jump ship and go to the side of truth, they will start to take another look at what he's been saying for the past 50 years. The toe.
This is still on its road to getting well. This is not one of the first pictures, but it gives you an idea of what we were dealing with and why they wanted to remove it, right? And remember, this guy's a diabetic. I don't think this is even today's. There's even one better than this. Oh yeah, where's today's toe? All right, where'd you go? Now let's look at the toe. Alright, so you just saw where it was, and let me show you where it is right now. Swelling coming out, all of that coming out of there. Now, remember, we're coming from a worse position than this. I dig down through these pictures into a position of this. We're doing pretty good, aren't we? And what type of protein have we been using to give those amino acids and give all that power, all that protein to rebuild that? What food are we using to do that? Fruit only. Fruit protein only. So for you biochemists out there, you can explain it for me. But this is amazing. Let's see what his blood pressure is. Left arm 120/79, right arm 123/80. Right arm, right foot. So when you look at this, the right arm is 80. So he still has kidney issues big time. That 80 is kidney. And that, so I hope this doesn't bother you too much to have that in there. Sawing in the background. He'll be done here in a minute. But when you have 80 diastolic, 80 diastolic is too high. You want 60. 60 to 65 is perfect. So that tells you right there that the right kidney is a problem. That's the right foot. And the left is not too far off because it's 79. And there was a lot of edema in that foot, in that leg even, and that ankle when we started this, if you remember. If you go back here to some of these pictures, well, here's a swollen foot right back there. See how swollen that was at one time? And here's even back further, a little more swelling going on in that. Right? And we can take it on back to, here's a gruesome one. All right, look at all that. All right? Well, here's one even more. Take a look at that. All right, so he's built this up. His body has literally eliminated. And what you're seeing here is the elimination of bone tissue, no matter what kind, that is necrotic or that the body doesn't want, doesn't need. Out you go. Now, he has an exit point there on that toe to do that, right? Now, we've detoxified people in needing to get it done quicker, and the skin just opened up and ooze pus and sewage. And in fact, I had a guy, I told you, in a little area in his belly button opened up, and a tumor popped out. And I'd show you that tumor, but we laid it on the lab, and the lady cleaning our lab at the time threw it away, thought it was nothing. It was like, he threw my tumor away. But that's pretty good. Now he's down to 5 units, and his blood sugar is 100, basically 105. So I need him to pop off of that 5 units, no matter what he sees in blood sugar, pop off of that. Get off of the insulin, let the body start regenerating its own insulin, and start moving that way. 5 units is nothing. We never give any insulin in the hospital with 105 blood sugar. Even 200. 200 may be the tipping point. But that's pretty good, don't you think?
What we were talking about. So I know I kind of went off a tangent, but it's just kind of, first of all, that was remarkable. I hope you all kind of can see just how amazing and how we've all been really brainwashed to think that we need all of these very severe and extreme methods of helping people heal when there is a path in nature using the most perfect foods for humanity, which they are fruits. And people will talk about, going on a fruit diet. Yeah, you'll lose weight. If you're a guy, you'll probably lose a lot of weight, but then you'll rebuild healthy tissue. And so no matter what ill health you're dealing with, if you just simply align with nature. And Dr. Morse helps people do this, and he's got a whole clinic in Florida with counselors that work with him. I used to work down there with him, with Dr. Morse. And who knows, maybe I'll talk to him and I'll go back down there because I don't know what my job prospects look like. And Florida's just so hot, but, there's good people with Dr. Morris. I mean, he's good people, and everybody that I really loved working in the clinic down there when I was down there. So that was, I don't know. And I'd love to, get into just 100% teaching others how to learn about the human body and use that in alliance with, these principles of nature and helping people heal with fruit and whatnot. But anyway, I only bring up this example for this question because everything that has been written down that we think is history or even occulted history, there could be some aspects to it that are very truthful. And as you wrote in your email, like the truth is self-evident. There's something else you wrote that I wanted to say, but anyway, a lot of times I think you mentioned something like when we see the truth, when we hear the truth, a lot of times we just know it, but then there could be something mixed with that is very, could be something that was part of an agenda. So, I would love to talk to you more about Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley. I don't know, I would say Blavatsky and Crowley, both of those individuals, I know what I've heard of them in both realms. I mean, people that have talked negatively of them, and then people that have talked that, their truth and what they shared was very important. I don't know a lot about their work, though, but I'm open to learning more. Honestly, as much as there is so much to discover, and I'm shamefully going to say that I have not taken advantage of Mark Passio's arc, which I need to do, because he has the arc drive on his website, One on Earth is Happening, and I just need to hunker down and give him a whatever you send him, and he puts all of that information on there. I know he came up with the ARC 2.0, which I think even has more information. So I think I'm going to send that out to him and get that information. I'm sure he has a lot of amazing research that he's added to that on Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley. Oh, I've got Emoji King here. Hi, Emoji King, my #1 YouTube fan. He always has great things, or she, I don't know. I just know Emoji King, I love you. Crowley is the biological father of Barbara Bush. I wouldn't doubt it. A lot of people that are in the know are related to one another. Alessandros writes, thank you for what you are doing. Keep it up. Lots of love. Well, thank you, dear one. Thank you so much for supporting me and joining me today. I truly appreciate it. I mean, it does make me feel a little less alone in this craziness world, as I was sharing at the get-go. I'm going to see if I have any other questions in my email, because I've been so busy this week. It's just been nonstop between, trying to find a regular job, which, like, half-ass, I just want to get rid of it all. And I'd rather, if I could pick, I'd probably just go work with Dr. Morse and, if he would have me, or at least go down there and teach, because he's doing God's work, honestly. And I don't say that just kind of half-ass. I say that because the man, he's just like this gift to our planet. Dr. Morris has come here and, you know, and I don't know, people that I kind of really have a loving for in my heart. A lot of people that are content creators in the One Great Work Network. You know, when I watch, you know, their live stream events or the video footage they put out, I can just kind of feel this resonance in my heart. And I just wish there was a place where we were all together. Like, part of me wishes I could just get rid of everybody else. But I guess Bill Gates is doing that for us, isn't he? I'm a dude. Thank you for and that's Cynthia and I. Thank you. Well, greetings to Cynthia and to you, Emoji King. And you're a 62-year-old iridologist. I know you've mentioned a lot about iridology, so iridology, fascinating way to understand your health. Obviously, Dr. Morse teaches a lot about iridology. He has an iridology class. And, yeah, there's, you know, as I'm sitting here, you know, talking to Emoji King and anybody else that's listening to me right now, I think I kind of know what I have to do. You know, and I've been really praying quite a bit on this question. There is, you know, this fear I have of doing it on my own, and can I support myself? And, you know, the classes that I offer for students that, you know, want to learn with Dr. Morse, you know, I might just give Dr. Morse a call and ask him for some advice on this because, you know, I've been really trying to keep these classes very, very, very cheap for, you know, college level, doctorate level types of information that I share with my students in the natural health realm. But, you know, and I've been told by several people that I shouldn't make these classes so cheap, and I might have to raise the prices, and I hate doing that. I mean, I want to make them accessible to everybody. So, you know, maybe I'll just formally say it here, because I'll probably have to raise the prices of my classes, but if you are struggling financially, please just reach out to me, you know. I mean, I can probably help you out to some extent, although I do have to be able to support myself, hopefully, and feed my children, my children that are fur animals. But, oh, let's see, Will Tell Truth is here. I love your work, you're amazing. Thank you, dear one. Agape. Back at you, my friend. And Emoji King writes, we take care of Michelle, quadriplegic of 45 years, from vaccines. Guillain-Barré syndrome. My aunt, who passed away in 2009, heartbreaking. She was young. She was in her 50s. And she had Guillain-Barré syndrome. And it was after, in the 70s, when they were doing whatever vaccine back then. I don't know, was it the swine flu vaccine? I don't know. But it was, I think it was the same vaccine that affected Jeff Berwick's mother. And then she became paralyzed because of it. But my aunt it was such a tragic story. She got the vaccine, and then she developed Guillain-Barré syndrome, and she was eventually put on a ventilator because, you know, it affected all of her muscle tissue. She couldn't even use her diaphragm for breathing. And what was so heartbreaking, I was young. I was like maybe 3 or 4 years old when this happened. But my grandfather was so stressed about it. You know, his daughter, my dad's sister. He was so stressed that he had a heart attack and died while she was, you know, in this induced coma. And then when she woke up from this horrific event, she found out that her father had passed away. I mean, it's like bringing me to tears to tell that story, but my God, these vaccinations, and I have so many stories like this with vaccinations. Just in my own family, I have several stories. I mentioned my cousin's baby died after being vaccinated. They said it was SIDS, but even the pediatrician agreed that it was probably the vaccine. just heartbreaking. It is so heartbreaking that this is the I mean, why humanity is accepting this? I don't get it. Lou Gehrig is here, writing, "Why fruits? High water contain why don't you like Robert Young theories? He talks about the truth." I do like Robert Young. I know Robert Young. I mean, I don't know as much about Robert Young. I know little things here and there. I know he's into the blood analysis, if I'm not mistaken. I know he likes to look at, the blood, the moving blood underneath the microscope. And I think this is the Robert Young you're talking about, but as far as diet, does Robert Young, is he more of like a veggie guy? I just like the fruits because I felt their effect personally. I did 6 months on fruits in 2010, and I felt amazing. I mean, I had so much energy, I just didn't know what to do with myself. And that was kind of like the reemergence of my natural health findings. I think I shared my story of when I was in medical school, but I did do an internship with Joel Furman, who at the time was a natural hygienist. He's a medical doctor, and he's like really popular now, but he's still kind of, more on the natural side, even though he's gotten more mainstream. But when I worked with him, he was doing water fasting, and he's the one that opened my eyes to natural hygiene, and then, mostly fruits and raw vegetables as man's perfect diet. And I kind of, learned all of this in medical school, and then I kind of put it on the back burner. And that was, when I was in medical school in the mid-90s. And then I guess it was 2001, maybe 2010, no, maybe 2008 or 2009, that I'm like, okay. So that was like 20 years later almost, right? No, wait, that's not right. 10 years later? I can't do math. But then I had all of these natural hygiene books, and I just started going back through them again because I just wasn't feeling so great. Anyway, I'm going to read some more questions that came to me. Let me get the ones on the YouTube first. Will tell truth. Nature is the real true constitution, the blueprint to higher consciousness and evolution. So true. Yes, it is. It's just something, I think, and to come back to the question from before about, how do you know if something's true? How I know is that it aligns with nature. It's natural. And yeah, you might be researching some esoteric writings or findings, maybe a book written a long, long time ago. But does it resonate with nature? Is it aligned with nature? And that it is the blueprint. Let me read this question, because this is from, I think, one of my students. And again, I guess I have a couple of questions, maybe just one. I will read this question. Okay. This is a question from a student that finished electrical chemistry and cell biology. They liked my courses, thank you. Except for having to revisit the Krebs cycle, the bane of medical training. Yeah, I get it. The Krebs cycle can be a little bit overwhelming. I remember when I was in undergrad, I took biochemistry. I took biochemistry in undergrad, in med school, and in graduate school. So had my master's degree is actually in biochemistry. And I just remember, trying to memorize all of those chemicals. We had to write down their full formula and show how, through various reactions that they changed from one chemical to the next, and, the release of the electrons and whatnot, which is really important for the whole process of cellular respiration and ATP production. But yeah, I get it. Yeah, the Krebs cycle could be a little overwhelming. But anyway, she writes, loved how everything was applied to natural healing. Thank you, and she can't wait for the next class. Should be coming up pretty soon. I was left with a few questions, if you have time to comment, mostly making sure my explanations are sound when talking to, I guess, the people she talks to, the patients she talks to. This might be a real medical doctor, I don't know. Maybe she is. I'm not going to say her name, I'm just going to share my answers to these questions to help everybody learn from them. First question is nutrition. Fruit as the donor of the highest energy electrons. Is that more of an assumption, a working theory, or is there a way to show that chemically? Well, you know what? That's a very good question. I saw a couple of papers, and these might have just been commentary types of papers. I'd have to pull them up and find them again. But they both made reference to high energy electrons coming from fruit. And in my opinion, fruit in its natural state, unadulterated, it hasn't been heated, obviously. Normally we don't cook fruits. Usually it is raw. It's organic. It's grown in, just amazing environments, good soil. It's going to be surrounded, everything in the cells that make up that fruit is going to be kind of filled with so many antioxidants, so many phytochemicals, that the electrical nature of the molecules coming from that fruit are just going to be, I think, resonating with a lot of high energy. As opposed to, if we think of other foods we get electrons from that feed the electron transport chain, those electrons are more devitalized. Like, think about, I don't know, people always talk about carbs like from starches, like grains and bread products and, cooked potatoes. That's all been through heat, possibly denatured in some way, shape, or form. And those electrons are probably not going to be resonating as highly as the raw, vibrant electrons in fruits. And when those high energy electrons in the fructose coming from a fruit, a raw fruit that was freshly picked, when that enters our body and it's passed on, going from, the fructose from there as the chemical bonds are broken, picked up by a carrier like NAD or FAD, and then sent to the electron transport chain in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Those electrons are going to be allowing for the production of probably the most energy as opposed to the devitalized electrons. So that's how I look at it. And it's probably, I would say, more of a working theory. I don't know how one would prove that, but I'd be quite interested, if there were some, research to show. But that's kind of how I explain it to my clients when I'm explaining why fruit is just ideal. The next question, low fat as ideal for humans. I've seen some sources that say the liver and the gallbladder can only comfortably handle 10% fat in the diet. Is that more of an assumption or a working theory? Is there a way to show that chemically? Well, I think that, the foods that are lower in fats are the fruits, right? So that's because fruit is, I think, in my opinion, our ideal food. We just try to align with that percentage of fat. So you have people like, Doug Graham, who wrote the 80-10-10 book, and his whole dietary, foundation is a high fruit diet. And, Dr. Morse kind of falls into that category. I think there is a place for fat. And I do think there is also a place for cleansing the liver and gallbladder, especially when you've gone on a prolonged low-fat diet. A lot of times we do get a little bit of a fat in our diet, even if we're eating a very natural diet. If we're getting some avocados or a few raw nuts and seeds here and there, you're getting some fat. But if you go on a cleanse, like, a 40-day grape fast, and you have like zero, not zero, you never get zero, because there's always some fats, even very small percentages in fruit. They're made up of cells, and cells have phospholipid bilayers, so you're going to be getting a little bit of fat. But, sometimes it's good to get fat in a concentrated amount, like if you're doing the liver gallbladder flush, because what that does is it does cleanse the gallbladder. So if you do like a 60-day, let's say you do a 60-day fruit cleanse, nothing but fruit for 60 days, that's just 2 months. And you've had no fat running through your GI tract. That bile sitting in your gallbladder is just kind of sitting there. And, anything sitting in one location for a long period of time, that's, you want to get things moving about. So I often recommend to my clients, especially if I see in their iris that they might have a liver or gallbladder weakness or even a pancreas weakness, I might recommend a liver gallbladder flush. Not often, maybe once, maybe twice a year, but not that often. And I find that when people do that, it does kind of re-stimulate and cleanse that gallbladder that's been holding on to that bile, and then it gets that bile eliminated. Yes, bile, first and foremost, bile does not eliminate unless there's a stimulus from fat in the intestinal tract coming through. If there's no fat coming through, you're not going to get that contraction via cholecystokinin of the smooth muscle in the gallbladder wall to push all that bile out. And bile does contain waste products in addition to other things, so it's good to get that moving. All right, the next question, exosomes. Do you think this theory is saying that there are exosomes and viruses, or that we have mislabeled viruses? I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to say I think we have mislabeled viruses. That's my current belief. Can I prove that? Not really. Does that mean that the evil mad scientists have not taken the exosome and genetically created something that could be more pathogenic? I don't know. I don't really align with this whole Fauci. Fauci. I don't think, this whole thing that he created something in Wuhan. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't put it past those evil SOBs. But I think naturally viruses are exosomes, and they're just ways of communication between cells. And perhaps, if you have an organism that's releasing exosomes that affect another organism, that other organism is probably going to have, first and foremost, markers that exosome can bind to if they're in the same species, which is a lot of times why we think viruses are species specific. Like when I was in medicine, we were taught, like for instance, the parvovirus. Parvo affects puppies, there's a parvo that affects kittens, there's a parvo that affects humans, right? But it tends to be species specific. Well, that's the theory anyway. Well, I think it's because exosomes tend to have, bind to, I should say, the same kind of markers that are in the other members of that species. And then it might trigger a response so that they can more adequately prevent whatever that exosome might be communicating from affecting that other person. And remember, exosomes, as I mentioned in my cell biology course, are released when a cell is stressed. We talked about the electromagnetic types of stressors, like, EMF waves, the radio waves, the 5th generation wireless nonsense that's all over the place now. But stressors are also emotional. They're also, chemical toxins, mental stressors. There's lots of them. All right, so let me read the rest of your question. That there has never been a live virus isolated, and everything we think is a virus is a message from the inside of the cells. How do we reconcile that information in the emerging viruses book, e.g., the HIV virus was intentionally put in vaccines versus Cowan's work? Or as naturopaths, when we are testing for something like Epstein-Barr virus antigens, what are we testing? Antigens to the exosome package that contains the Epstein-Barr virus message? Well, if we even look at Epstein-Barr virus, and what it's been implicated in, which seems to be a lot of different types of ill effects. If I'm not mistaken, isn't fibromyalgia thought to be caused by perhaps Epstein-Barr virus? Again, I think these are just little proteins that are in cellular membranes that are associated with things that they can identify. So the HIV virus intentionally put in vaccines, I honestly have not heard of that. So I don't know. I know that the HIV virus was another possible sham created by or associated with Fauci. that plus this coronavirus. I mean, they both seem to be a little bit on the, let's control humanity type of agenda. But yeah, that's a good question. I mean, what are we testing? That we're just testing that something that we have identified as being a part of something we can find in another human is being causative for their pathology. When in reality, it's just because they have a biological terrain that is severely congested and they need to detoxify. And I think, lymphatically congested individuals are more likely to hold on to various exosomes or other things that have been brought into their interstitial environments to communicate what's going on. They're going to probably have more of those proteins, markers, that can be picked up by a test. I'd be very curious, like, what, if you have like a fruitarian that is living in Costa Rica for the past 50 years, 40 years, and they've been eating nothing but fruit, and they are not, if there's any place we could go where there aren't, 5G waves affecting us, or any place where there aren't these stressors, if we could find somebody like that lives on a remote island, they're not affected by any of this, and they've only been eating a species appropriate diet of high fruit, maybe they're drinking a bunch of coconut water and fruits that they get right off the tree, nothing packaged, nothing that comes with an ingredient label. Would we be able to find any antigenic marker in these individuals? Because they're probably so interstitially clean, they're not going to hold on to any of that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. But I think those are beautiful questions, and I will email you. I'm going to mark your question to let you know that I talked about this in my live stream. So hopefully you'll find it, and when I go back, for those of you that I'm answering questions to, I will mark the time when I'm discussing your question. All right, let me come back to my YouTube people. Where am I? Will Tell Truth writes, nature is the real... we talked about that one. Yes, I agree. Emoji King writes, fruits, amazing. I did a 30-day citric juice feast in 91. Couldn't stay on my body. Yeah, I know. Dr. Morse did that for 6 months. He was on fresh organic oranges in Florida for 6 months, and he said he was having a lot of out of body experiences. Emoji King also writes, shout out to Dickie Barrett of the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, new album out now. All right, I've heard of them. I think they're a pretty good band. I'm trying to think of a song that they are associated with. I think I know it, but I don't know the name. Let's see. Marcus Rothkranz, Lauren Lockman, John Hlur, or Joe Hlur. I know the first two you wrote there, Lauren Lockman and Marcus Rothkranz. I think both of those men are doing a lot of great work, and I really like, what they're putting out there for the people, sharing their truth. And I don't like to say sharing their truth, sharing the truth that they have found to be most effective for health and vitality. Let's see. Our body's automaticity heal when you stop putting crap in it. Yep, then we have good reactions to that, don't we? Let's see. I think you guys are just kind of going back and forth there with comments. So let's see, at 6:22, believe it or not, I have to pee again. Oops, trying to come back. 1 second. And I'm back. All right. So, good questions, though, tonight that we're discussing. Let me come back to my email. Like I said, it's been a crazy week. And, there's one from another question. Oh, this is from somebody that might want to schedule, I think, a consultation with me. So, this I cannot read. So, this is personal information. I need to get back to this individual. I do work with people one-on-one if people want to set up health consultations. if you're, one thing I'll say, if you want to set up a health consultation and you email me with questions, I get to them as I get to them. Sometimes I get a lot of emails. Keep in mind, this summer, I'm teaching 100 students this summer alone. And they, I work with them Monday through Thursday all day, because I'm teaching double overload this summer. And I agreed to do it mostly because I had a lot of students request me, and I'm just kind of trying to financially set myself up in case I don't have a job this fall because of the scam. But it's really quite overwhelming, my schedule this summer. It's craziness. So if you want to ask me questions, I do have on my website, which is naturallawhealth.com. I'll just share this with everybody, like where you can schedule time with me. Because if you need to talk to me about something and you email me, it might take up to a week before I get back to you. I do have to, address my current students and my clients first. With my class being only $55, at least that's what my electrical chemistry class was, and then the cell bio course. I made them so cheap, but it's hard for me to really get back to all of my students in those courses. And with my full-time job, I have to address those students more quickly because, a typical college class, they pay what is it, like $100, $200 per credit hour, and it's a 4 credit hour course, so they're paying $600 to be with me this summer. So I don't like to put it in monetarily like that. I do try to get back to everybody, but sometimes I have to kind of, address things as they come. And I'm teaching longer hours. My lectures in the summer are 3 hours each, and each class meets twice a week, so it's taking up a lot of time. Plus I have office hours. It's overwhelming. And I don't mean to bitch, but I guess I am bitching a little bit. But anyway, let me share with you, if you have something that you want to chat with me about, and it's important, there are many ways you can get a hold of me. So this is my website, naturallawhealth.com, and you can see, you can get information about me, grapes, amazing, just around the corner, late August, early September, grapes, organic grapes become available. So you might want to do a grape cleanse. Good stuff. And then, I got more information about my history, my work with Dr. Furman, my work with Dr. Morse, my specialties. Here is a little bit about my A&P course. So these two courses, the first two, are going to be used as part of Dr. Morse's naturopathic school. These are up for students to take, so I highly recommend them. They're both complete courses as of now. They're done. The A&P courses will be added. Now, I do have some A&P courses listed here. These are my old A&P courses, and they're more allopathic. This is what I teach this is what I taught. I taught like an easier version of A&P, but in the new A&P courses I will be offering beginning January 27th, which is a week from Sunday. Those courses will be completely re-recorded, and I'm going to be tying in a lot of natural healing modalities, a lot of natural law, so it's really going to be a little bit more involved there. So you can take these courses. They're pretty cheap. I mean, $44 for, basically this amounts to, several courses in one. My first A&P course, by the way, is going to be Intro to A&P plus Histology. And then the second course, I'll probably, from there, I'm going to talk to Dr. Morris about how to, go through the different organ systems. I want to get a little bit of his feedback based on his experience with, how the human body heals, and just a more intuitive way to present the organ system. Traditionally, the way that allopaths present it is probably not the best way, since allopaths don't know how to heal anything. But anyway, these are older courses, so you can check those out if you'd like to. And, yeah. But, let me show you something else. So, that's A&P, which you can get to from my normal website. It does take you to my educational platform, but this is one place to go to get that. And then I have health consultations. So if you want to schedule some time with me, if I see you for the very first time, it's got to be an initial consultation, because I have you fill out a lot of paperwork, and then I request your irises, and I do a complete iris analysis. I think last week I showed you one of them. And then after meeting with you and taking lots of detailed notes, I come up with a recommended herbal and dietary protocol for you. And I also provide you a lot of helpful informational handouts of various cleansing types of protocols, like how you can assist your body in detoxification, perhaps neurolymphatic points, which Dr. Morris talks about quite a bit, hot and cold compresses on the back of the neck, herbal inhaling of various herbal teas. Not that you're putting the tea in your nose, but, as the vapors come off the pot, you're leaning over there with a towel over your head, deeply inhaling those vapors with the medicinal herbs kind of permeating through your nasal cavity, breaking up a lot of that congestion. What's another one I commonly share? And various types of cleanses, like I mentioned the liver, gallbladder flush earlier. That's one. Talk about a poultice, how to create a poultice if that's something that you need to use topically for pain or for swelling. So there's a lot of things that I advise clients when I'm helping them, depending on their specific issue. But that's an initial consultation. And then after an initial consultation, then you schedule follow-ups based on what you want. I typically recommend a follow-up in about 8 weeks or so. But if you need more time with me, you can schedule a full hour or 30 minutes. And if you just want an iris analysis by itself and you don't want anything else, you just want to see where your eyes are, what your eyes are telling you about your health, you can schedule that. And I will give you a video review. So I will give you a video link. You'll see your iris on the screen, and then you'll hear my voice talking about what my findings are. And then I'll send you the full report as well, typed up. And last but not least, if you're not sure which of these, if you need an initial consultation or something else, and you're just not sure, for $35 you can reserve 30 minutes of my time and ask me anything you want. And that way you have my dedicated time where I am going to answer your questions. And it's not going to be any health recommendations, because at that point, if you're just asking general questions, you're not, technically... you're not my client until I have you sign an agreement form because of, law and all of that nonsense. Man's law and its craziness. But, you can ask about the kind of things I do. I share a lot of this on my, this live stream and other videos that I do. But, if you want some dedicated time one-on-one with me, set this up and look at my availability. You'll see I don't have a lot of availability right now. My time is very... right now, between me teaching, it seems like 80 hours a week just for my full-time job, because I am teaching double overload, and trying to find a job, which I'm getting very frustrated with. It seems like any free time I have outside of that, I'm doing this tonight. I'm trying to, finish up the last bits of details for my A&P class for next week. But, I do have 4 children. Yes, they're furry, and yes, they're not human, but they're my babies, and I have to take care of them. So I really have very little free time these days. So it's best if you need me to book time with me. Many people ask me questions about this, that, or the other, and I wish I could help everybody. I really do. I love sharing information and knowledge. I just physically do not have the time unless I don't get any sleep. And I will add that I have my oldest dog is 15, and he does get me up. Since this past winter, he gets me up once or twice every night. You know, he's at that age where when he has to go potty, he just comes right up against my ear and barks. And that's been kind of messing with my sleep, and that's been a little bit crazy, but you know, I'll do anything for him. So if he needs me to get up at 1 in the morning to let him out for a tinkle or a Tootsie Roll, I say poop is Tootsie Roll, that's what I do for him. Let me see if I have any other emails that might be associated with questions for this live Q&A. I don't think so. So, let me come back to the YouTube and see if anybody had any questions there. Emoji King wants to meet Dr. Morris. He is a heavenly man. I never get tired of watching Kill Bates catch those pies in the face. Yeah, it's good times. Good times. Lou writes, the primary function of the stomach is to neutralize the food so it can absorb in the small intestine. It must be 8.4 pH goes into the small intestines. The acid is what is in the food. Well, I mean, honestly, the acid that is released by the hydrochloric acid released by the parietal cells in the lining of our stomach, in our gastric glands, that acid does a couple of things. It activates and converts pepsinogen, which is a inactive proenzyme, or what we call a zymogen. It converts that pepsinogen into pepsin, which is the active enzyme that chemically digests proteins. So that's one of the functions of the acid in the stomach. Another function is that it denatures dietary proteins. So most proteins we get in our diet, whether they're from plant or animal sources, they tend to be folded in a specific shape, and that shape is maintained at a temperature and pH of around 7. Or I should say not a temperature, but a pH of around 7. Well, when that's thrown into a low pH environment like the stomach, closer to 1, 1.5, that's going to unfold those dietary proteins. And then enzymes like pepsin can start cleaving peptide bonds. And then, a third thought is that the acid environment is not a good environment for, toxins that might enter via our food in our stomach. So it can also break those down. So it's, so that's kind of what the function of the acid is. I wouldn't say that it's in the food, but when our chyme, which is what we form in the stomach by mixing the gastric secretions with the food, we form chyme. And that chyme is very acidic in the stomach as it mixes with the hydrochloric acid. When that moves into the small intestine, into the duodenum of the small intestine, the pancreas, as part of its secretion, releases sodium bicarbonate. And then that helps to neutralize and bring the pH in the stomach up. And you're right, it can get as high as 8, maybe even a little higher than 8. And that's the ideal pH environment for many of the enzymes that work in the intestinal tract. So that's kind of how I describe it. Let's see. Swallow a pea or corn, it comes out the same way it goes in. Yeah, I think that has more to do with the fibrous nature of like corn. But some people break it kind of down. And part of that might have to do with your gut microbiome too. Because remember, our microbiome is very much influenced by our diet. And so people might develop more of the microorganisms in their intestinal tract that help to break down fiber. We don't have enzymes to do that, but the gut microbiome does. And so if you have a healthier biome and you eat corn, you might not see any corn in your poop. Acids do not break down the food, period. Lies. Yeah, acid does not break down the food. It unfolds the proteins in our food, but enzymes are what break down chemical bonds. So that's perfect. Yeah, you got that right. Awesome. Let's see. I'm just reading the comments in the YouTube. Lou Gehrig, yeah. let's see. Emoji King writes. Oh wait, Emoji King wrote, Lou Gehrig, do you have a link to your channel? Conductivity Diet, Tavis Bradley, I think. Yeah, Tavis Bradley. I'm familiar with him. I came across him because of the Life Regenerator, Dan the Man. Let's see. Drink more, eat less. We are 75% water, 25% mass. Light Body Diet, Geno's Plasma Master Fast System. I am familiar with the Master Fast. I mean, he condones the use of pasteurized grape juice, which I'm not a big fan of. I think it's better to drink fresh grape juice or just eat the grapes. I think the grapes themselves are perfect. Alright. I'm just kind of looking at, let's see. I got a good screenshot of your irises and blew it up. Oh my goodness. It's a little foggy, but I can read them okay. Yeah, those iris photos were from a while back, and my eyes look a little bloodshot. Water-soluble fruit or vegetables will work. Do you need, let's see, you need your greens too. Alright, I'm going to stop reading the chat. So, coming back to what I originally was talking about when I first started the live stream today, is that just kind of this disenchantment with the world. And as I mentioned with the chiropractor, having not been vaccinated for 50 years and felt the push. You know, how can you take something that you cherish, and that is the nature and just the divinity of your own human physical form. And for 50 years, you did not trust the vaccination. And you stayed away from it. And just because of this story, that's my little goose. But can you see this little angel in the... Oh no, I have my lights off. But I have an angel right here. My little daughter. I love her so much. Anyway, sorry. Just because you decided that, you know, everybody is... Thank you, I love you. Everybody is, you know, so concerned about this thing. I mean, I really don't get it. How can you just allow them to inject whatever this is that was fast-tracked, that was, you know, pushed through? How can you let that enter your system? I mean, it's like I would do anything to protect my own physical form. And this physical form is how I interact with this gift of the planet and the experience I, you know, expressing as a human being. And I just don't understand how somebody could allow themselves to be assaulted like that by these injections. You know? I was on, you know, I don't spend too much time on Facebook, but every now and then I'll pull it up and I'll see somebody's comment. I had a comment from somebody that I used to know a long time ago, and she was complaining how the state we both live in is just being really weak on vaccines, and that our governor should do something about it. We should enforce these vaccines more powerfully. And then she had this heartfelt, you know, plea, like, if you live in our state, please reach out to people and tell them, convince them they need this vaccine. I mean, I think the people that don't want the vaccine are pretty sure why they don't want it. And it's not because they're too lazy. It's not because they're just like, maybe it might be dangerous. I think they can see that there is an evil agenda And, from everything that I have watched, like, with some of the channels I watch, like Max Egan and James Corbett and whatnot, there's some scary shit going out there, And, James Corbett is great with his research. And he's shared a lot. I mean, he is a content creator, by the way, on the One Great Work Network. And, if you just take the time to watch some of his videos and what he's shared with everyone about some of these groups that are trying to take over humanity, and perhaps, as James Corbett has alluded to in the factual information he has shared, that they're trying to diminish the human species. They don't want humans on this planet, or maybe the only humans they want are maybe a small segment of our current population that can act as these slaves. And then, the elites, the self-appointed elites. I'm going to share something, because I forgot that I thought about this a couple of days ago when I was listening to one of James Corbett's latest videos. And I know, honey, I'm going to feed you in a second, okay, Angel? But, there have been a lot of not videos, but, different things that have come up, like with Obama and how he was connected, and even his husband/wife, like they're connected to kind of the pharaohs of Egypt. And there was like a picture of Obama and this one pharaoh, and they looked very similar to one another. Who knows how much of that is true, but it just made me think. I thought of that when James Corbett was talking about in his latest video about them wanting to reduce the human population. And, back in those days, these pharaohs, and like in the time of the Egyptian, I don't know, when Egypt was the big hub of our planet, there was this alien connection to that. And it's thought like aliens might have come down, and, if you look at like all of the old relics showing the drawings of the beings back there, and they always had these huge headdresses, because I really think they had like those cone heads, those pointed heads, those larger cranial cavities holding larger brains perhaps. And who knows if that's kind of like the Anunnaki that Mark Passio talks about in Cosmic Abandonment. And, through the breeding of these beings from space who had the bigger heads and were probably a lot taller, and then these humans that were smaller, we came to where we are today. And I think they want to go back there. They want to create a different species. And maybe that's why they're trying to tie in so much technology into life. And that's not life. And it makes me question just, what was going on back in Egypt. And, there have been so many things that have separated us from previous human existence on this planet. I mean, Max Egan talking about Tartaria and the mudslides. That's something to look into. That there was perhaps a totally different environment with, natural energy, and that was all destroyed. And, and even Max Egan talks a little bit about how they brought in children to repopulate the earth afterwards. I don't know. I mean, you hear these things, and it kind of goes to the one question about that somebody sent me about, how do we know what's true? And if you get new information, do you change your thoughts? And there's just so much out there that basically what I do is I just kind of try to compare what information is coming my way, if I do take the time to read it, and how does that align with nature overall? Because nature is what I use as my compass to determine whether or not something is going to resonate with me. It's not like I'm even determining if it's resonating with me. It just does resonate with me if it's more natural. But at the same token, I try not to spend too much time in my head because that can be a recipe for disaster. That can be really, I mean, yes, everything's mental, but use your mental capacities to help you create something that you want to bring forth in this world. You know, perhaps freedom and truth and love and beauty and protection for the children, but not too much protection, allowing them the freedom to explore, allowing us all to have the freedom to explore without having to cover up our faces and be injected with poisons. I mean, is that too much to ask for our time on this planet? That we not be assaulted with chemicals and face diapers? I don't think it's too much to ask. Yes, somebody wrote, or Emoji King wrote, Obama's bloodline. Yeah, they could be. It could be that the Egyptians were part of Obama's bloodline. Who knows? I mean, everybody's related, you know? I think there was, like, in the history of all of the world leaders, only one wasn't really related to all of the others. So we're kind of winding down on my on my live stream. I was like, you know, the hour leading up to this live stream, I was really feeling shitty. I was really feeling like, God, I do not want to do anything. You know, I just have been so... I've just been feeling really, really down. You know, coming back to what I first started talk about at the beginning of this live stream event. But, you know, interviewing for jobs. Actually, one of them, they wanted to hire me, and their offer was just so lowball. I mean, I'm like, you got to be kidding. So I had to reject it. I mean, I can't take 50% pay cut. You know, I'd rather just do my own thing at that point than to have to learn a whole new educational platform system and not get paid for training. It's just kind of crazy. So I had to tell them no. And, you know, that's the thing. I mean, they're really splitting. You know, there is no more middle class. They're really trying to split the, you know, society into, like, the elite with all of the resources and then people like us that have nothing. And I don't want to be in either group, to be honest with you. I just want to create what I can, and that's really what I'd rather do anyway. Create my own courses and to help clients and to share the truth of how the body, if we trust in nature, can heal and regenerate. I mean, as I showed you earlier with Dr. Morse's latest video, and he's been talking about this person healing his toe. And how many diabetics do you know have had body parts just cut off? I mean, when I was in Seattle and I fell rock climbing, this was in 2015, and in the Seattle hospitals, you know, I know, like, where I live now in the Midwest, the hospitals out here, at least when I've gone to visit family and friends in the hospital, everybody had their own room. But in Seattle, because it's such a large city, their hospitals, you have 2 people to a room. And when I was in the hospital for my rock climbing accident in 2015, and I had to have 3 surgeries to put my ankle back together, my roommate in the hospital, she was there because she was having, I think, her 4th or 5th amputation. And her daughter was visiting her. And as I was, you know, in the room and, you know, pulled the the little divider back, you know, her and I, you know, we started talking, we started chatting back and forth. She always noticed that all I ate was fruit. I would always order for my meals fruit. And then I had a couple of friends that snuck me in some dates and other fruits that I had in my home because I was just missing a really good quality fruit because, you know, the hospital fruit. I mean, I'll take it if it's available, because I'm not going to eat the other crap that they feed you, but I needed some really good fruit. Anyway, she noticed that, and I started telling her, like, you don't have to have your toes amputated. You can turn this around naturally. And this was before I worked with Dr. Morris. I worked with Dr. Morris in 2016, 2017, so shortly after that accident, I was working with Dr. Morris. But, yeah, I remember that woman. And since then, and in the classes I teach, it's so disheartening because every semester that I talk about diabetes mellitus, and I talk about it quite a bit since it's such a prevalent dis-ease in our society. I teach it in both my Human A&P 1 and 2 classes at the traditional colleges I teach at. And I talk about its etiology, and the different types. Now there's a type 1.5, but traditionally there's been type 1, type 2. But I have a lot of my students that are already working in the hospital setting. And the things they share with me, because I'm not in the hospital anymore. I left medicine and I switched to academia, which, isn't that much better, but at least I don't have to hurt people with drugs and chemicals, right? I can just train people to do that. No, I'm just joking. I try to tell them I don't like drugs. In fact, I was having an office hour with a student yesterday, and we were going over homework questions, and a lot of them that I had assigned were about how different pharmacological agents work, like calcium channel blockers and beta blockers. And I told her that when I was in medical school, this was my least favorite part, pharmacology. It's like I just wanted to learn how the body worked naturally. I didn't want to learn how to suppress things using chemicals that were unnatural. But with that said, I do have a lot of students that already working like as aides or techs in the hospital, and they're taking classes with me because they want to, become like a BSN or an RN or a medical doctor or whatever. And they share some stories with me. Oh my goodness. Like one kid, he was working as a tech in the hospital, and he was telling me on the floor he was working on, there was a young man, just 20 years old, who went blind because of diabetes mellitus, lost his eyesight. I mean, this stuff can be reversed naturally, and yet a lot of times people wait way too long before making changes. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are times when medical intervention can be life-saving. And that's kind of where they shine, as at intervening and saving with heavy-hitting, hardcore drugs. But ideally, we don't get to that point of severity, and we start being more aware of our internal milieu, our internal physiology, and we can feel things. We listen to our emotional body and our spiritual body, our mental body, all of these bodies outside of our physical form. And we notice nuances in those. And this is like the beauty of Bach flower remedy, homeopathic remedies. They can gently manipulate those energetic systems. And even things like, the needle therapy, acupuncture, that too is another way to kind of open things up before something gets severe. Excuse me, so severe that you do need that heavy-hitting allopathic treatment. But keep in mind, if you're using something like acupuncture or homeopathy or, what was the other one I said? Bach flowers, you still have to eat a species-appropriate diet. I think that's where Dr. Morris gets upset with these types of modalities, is because you get, a good homeopath, and he might tell you what your constitutional remedy is, but if you're eating a shitty diet, that remedy is not going to be able to do its magic. You have to be on a species-appropriate high-fruit diet if you really want to heal, and that's really foundational. And that's what Dr. Morse teaches. All right, folks, I think I'm coming to the end. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Emoji King, love you so much. You, and give your wife a big hug for me. Thank you so much for all of your comments. If I don't heart one, it's just because sometimes when I go to my comments, I notice that it'll say I have 2 comments and I can't see them, and sometimes I never can see them. But when I see yours, I do always heart them. Lou, thank you for your comments. I appreciate those. And whoever else joined in the Facebook chat, Alessandros, thank you. You came early on. And Will Tell Truth, thank you so much, my dear friend. I hope you're all doing beautifully well, and I hope you have an amazing weekend. And thank you to all of my students, my natural health students, and my fellow beautiful, wise, anarchist friends that have sent me in questions. Again, if you weren't aware that I was going to read your question on the live stream, I will timestamp it for you so you can pull your answer up right away, and I will email you back. So thank you all for your support, and I am going to end it here. I don't know if I'll end it with Mr. Gates, but maybe I will. Why not, right? It's kind of like now what we do. We have to show Mr. Gates getting pied to kind of really feel good about ourselves, because he's up to no good, right? Bye, all. I will see you next week. Keep the questions coming, and have a beautiful week.